Well, hello, boys and girls. It is Dattitude, the live version. Every Friday morning at 10 a.m., we are here, and I am here. Jim Derry along with Zach Ewing. The boys are back in town. It's like the old days again, Zach, and it really wasn't that long ago.
No, it feels like it's longer than it really has
It
been.
does. It really does. It's been a long month or so. I think part of it is because of the heat. I like to bitch about the heat, but man, even for me, even for Louisianians who have lived through this every year, this is just insanely brutal. I can't imagine what it's like out there at camp. I mean, I know a lot of it's inside, but man, it is just brutal.
But I mean, I can't believe, like, I'm as thankful as anybody. You and I have these discussions all the time about, like, get these kids in school, get them away from me.
Exactly.
Like, but it's kind of cruel sending a kid to school when it's this freaking hot outside.
Well, I never understood why they. And hello, Jerry. We thank you for joining us. Jerry's always here with us. He's always here. We knew he was going to be here. But I never understood why you would start school before Labor Day. And, well, really anywhere, but especially in an area where it's super hot like it is here. I mean, start school after Labor Day, end it in June. I don't understand why we started in August and try to cram it in and get it over with before Memorial Day. Is Memorial Day that important? Just take Memorial Day off if you want, but start school after Labor Day.
I mean, I've thought about this a lot, actually, more than I probably should have. And the weather is so much nicer at Memorial Day than it is in August anyway.
There's no question.
Maybe the idea is to let them out of school when the weather is nice. And so, hey, they're going to be in air conditioning anyway. It's 157 degrees outside, but we'll be inside and they just won't have recess today. And they can deal with that for 2 weeks. I don't know. Maybe that's the answer.
Well, to show you how big a deal the weather is, we're what 2 minutes into the show, and we're still talking about something that hasn't nothing to do with sports. At least, kind of nothing to do with sports. We're actually going to get into a portion of this in a little bit, talking about the Saints and their potential move of camp next year. We're going to get into that just a little bit, but there are some things that I want to get into with Zach Ewing today. And you see them. They're the same things that are on the screen. The starters tomorrow. Oh, well, Sunday, excuse me, not tomorrow. 2 days from now. Sunday at noon. They're even playing Sunday at noon. It's going to be like a real Sunday. Chiefs, the defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs, are going to be in town. I'm sure they're enjoying the heat as well. And my question, and I don't want you to answer it now because it's coming up later. Why isn't anyone asking about Andrew Speed? And that doesn't just include, I want to know why no one. I mean, this media that loves the Saints, and we're all over the Saints last year with the overs. They think the Saints are out. It seems like they all think the Saints are going over this year. No one's asking the questions that some of us want to hear. Anyway, we're going to get to that in a little bit. I do want to talk about the game first. And, as Saints editor, and you've been through this I know you went on a mini vacation, so you're away for a little bit. But now that the team, you hear it every year, they get to play against someone other than themselves. And this is about the time of year when you get sick of beating up against yourself. I mean, you've been banging up against guys wearing black and gold for 2.5 weeks now. It's time to go up against someone else. So I'm sure the players are excited about this, and frankly, the media as well.
It's like the first milestone. I mean, the first 2 weeks of camp are such a grind, and the players know it. The media knows it. The coaches know it. You just got to get up every morning and go back out. Usually, it's hot. They do go indoors, but there's also an element of like Dennis Allen's an old Texas guy. Like he wants them to go out there and feel the heat and get tougher within limits, right? Like they have a cooling chamber and they hydrate and all these, like they're a lot smarter about it than the Junction Boys were. But there's still an element of like wanting to get out there and kind of get beat up a little bit. And so that's what the first 2 weeks of camp are. And now you kind of get that first milestone. Okay, it's the preseason now. We know we've got 3 preseason games. Then it's the regular season time. And in between all that, they get to take a trip to California, where it presumably will be cooler or at least less humid, for some joint practices with the Chargers next week and a game there. And then, and then you come back and you're into that last final stretch and some more joint practices with the Houston Texans. And so, I mean, I think you could just kind of feel it. I was out at practice on Wednesday, and everybody, Colin Saunders, the new defensive tackle, was the only one who said, I actually like the Heat. He was the only guy who copped to that and said it gets me in better shape. And,
Crazy.
He said he has asthma and he breathes better when it's warm. And so, but for the most part, yeah, it's a grind. And this is the first little glimpse of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, well, there's a difference between Heat and what we have right now. There's two different things. So I mean, and fans alone, I know fans get excited. I mean, I used to, I guess. I used to kind of enjoy preseason. I don't anymore. I mean, to me, yesterday marked it. You think about it, it's still 1 month away from the start of the regular season. It's hard to believe we've got to endure another month of this, but we do. And I mean, that's kind of where we are right now. You just hope nothing bad happens before then.
Yeah. Look, I think the best thing for the Saints so far in this camp, with as well as some of their top guys have played. I mean, Chris Olave, Marshawn Lattimore have been unbelievable. Derek Carr has looked the part. Alvin Kamara looks like he's got some of his burst back. I mean, the guys who they're going to rely on look good. But the absolute best part of news out of camp so far is that we're more than 2 weeks in and haven't had a major injury outside of Trey Turner, who was a depth piece, maybe wasn't even going to make the team. I mean, those things are going to happen.
Kind of a big deal.
You're not going to bat 1,000 on those things.
No, you're not. You're not, and you're probably not going to bat 1,000 going the rest of the way. I mean, Let's be honest. That's one bad thing about still a month to go. You're not going to bat 1,000 going the rest of the way. I do want to ask you one question though. Uncle Big Nick's with us. He wants to ask you a question. He said, "Mini vacay. Didn't you go to 82 ballparks in 2 weeks?"
Well, that was the full vacay. Now this was the mini vacay.
Okay.
So, and then I went to Omaha in between. I've had a good summer.
You've had a really good summer. I mean, really, it hasn't stopped for you since you vacay. How about 100K? I mean,
yeah, the 100K that's down to like less than 10K.
2K.
Bank account went back down into 4 figures again. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, I almost called you earlier in the week. Our AC went out for a day, and thank God it was just a fuse. But man, I was sweating, and not because of the heat, for about 3 hours, and I was like, man, I could use that 100K thing right now. Now.
Yeah, I don't know. And in this environment, everybody's going to be trying to get new AC, so that just jacks the price.
Yeah, and I'm surprised, man. Shout out to my guy because he came right away. Art Egan, fans and perhaps coaches are tired of Pete. I'm assuming he means Pete Carmichael. Maybe he means Andrus Pete. He spelled it P-E-T-E. I'm not sure if he means Pete Carmichael or Andrus Pete. We're going to get to Andrus Pete in just a little bit. He brought up Trey Turner, and it talks about. I mean, it's not just Andrus Pete, the whole offensive line. If there's one weak spot, if there's one thing that is keeping me from going gaga over these, I mean, gaga's a little strong, so I wouldn't go gaga. But if there's one thing that's keeping me saying, okay, I love the over 9 or 9.5, depending on where you get it, it's that O-line. It is keeping me. It is really stopping me from just, okay, he says Andrus Pete. There are things to be worried about, to go through what this offense has done in the preseason so far, from everything that I read from Luke and all of our people out there, they've looked great. The offense looks great. It looks like it's really coming together. We all talked about Derek Carr and how much of a difference he's going to make. So let's talk about the good before we talk about the bad. I can't read enough about Chris Olave because it just seems like he's really taking that next step, Zach, like he's going to become – no matter what Michael Thomas does, I think Chris Olave is the number one receiver for this team.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. Michael Thomas, look, they just want to get him out there for 12 plus games and get something out of the guy.
Yeah.
I think those are seriously the expectations. Not that it's impossible or there's zero chance he becomes something close to what he was before. I mean, it's always possible, but first you got to see him get out there for more than 2 games in a row. And go from there. But Olave, man, the one knock on this guy last year was contested catches, one-on-one situations, creating separation, when he's closely guarded. He's doing that in camp. Now, I will say Lattimore has typically gone up against Michael Thomas in camp, and so we haven't seen Olave against that top corner. But if he's going to beat the Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor type, then he's going to beat most corners in the league because those guys are starting quality cornerbacks, and Olave is making it look easy. I think he's in line for a fantastic year. We were talking about this with Garland Gillen on Fox 8 yesterday. Like his receiving yardage total is like 1,052 and a half or something like that. It seems really high. He had 1,042 last year on 7 targets a game. He looks better. Michael Thomas is going to take some of the attention away from him at the very least. I think he goes over that 1,052.
I think that's a legitimate number there. I think that's a great over to be had. Robbo must not be a Saints fan. Either that or he just really goes to sleep every night hating Dennis Allen. By the way, if you want to comment, have your comment or question aired, feel free to type it in the comment section if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll put it up here. Aints go 7-10, fire retread coach. I just don't get the hate for Dennis Allen. I mean he's never really been in it. And look, I got on him a little bit last year because there were some things, and I think it was more Pete Carmichael that upset me than anything. And I'm going to be open this year. I'm going into the season saying, okay, things didn't go right. I'm going to give him another chance. But as far as Dennis Allen goes, I mean, he's never really been in a situation where he's had a chance to win. To me, this is by far, going into the season, his best chance to have a winning season and go to the playoffs, by far, of all the season he's been a head coach.
Oh, yeah. No question. I mean, it's certainly the most talented team he's ever had. Now, having said that, I think he probably underperformed with the other teams. So, I don't remember his Raiders teams super well, at least the years before Carr got there. And he was only there for 5 games, I think, when Derek Carr was there. So I don't remember it super well, but he went 4-12 both times. I can't imagine that's exceeding expectations. And then last year, even with all the injuries and stuff, I don't think anyone would say the Saints met expectations. So he's going to have to meet those expectations, and he's going to have to prove that. Can he? Yeah, certainly. Like you said, this is the best team he's had. If they can stay healthy, it's the best quarterback he's had. It's the weakest schedule he'll probably ever have as an NFL coach. And so everything's lined up for him, but that means you got to go do it.
Well, here's a stat, and I'm assuming this guy is I'm assuming that this is thrown up there to just be kind of silly. What's Carr's stats? I mean, because if you're asking this question, you know what the answer is. But if you look at it, he's thrown for 4,000 yards. He did it 4,000 or more yards 4 years in a row, from 18 to 21. Last year was the first year he didn't since 2017, threw for 35-22, and he played in 15 games and had some issues towards the end of the season. So I'm not sure where this person is getting at. Go ahead. You can say what you really want to say. Say what you think, but there is zero question. Anyone who doesn't think Derek Carr is a major upgrade over anything that this team has had over the past 2 seasons is living in some weird land, and I might want to go there. I mean, it might be fun to go there for a few days. It's
like the guy who wanted to be in the Matrix, and he was like, I like the way chicken tastes, and I like being totally ignorant of the world outside me. No, I don't know. I think, and we talk about this. We have a new podcast, by the way, for those who listen to Dattitude, the Saints Insider podcast that we'll do a couple times a week starting out. Next episode's Monday. There's one up there from yesterday, or actually it was Wednesday night. We recorded it. You could check out. It's on podcast platforms. It's on YouTube. And we talked about this, like one area right now where you can say Derek Carr is going to help this team. Luke Johnson, our beat writer, came up with this stat. How many times did the Saints score in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter last year? Actually, it's the last 2 years. 2 years running now. How many times did they get a touchdown or a field goal in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter?
Not many. I don't know the answer, but not many.
One time.
Wow.
One time. And it was against Atlanta in the opener last year. One time.
I can tell you where they could have used it. Could change the whole season if they would have done it against Tampa Bay last year.
Yes, it would. I mean, well, look, you could point at 3 or 4 different games where it would have changed everything. Cincinnati was another one. If you could have won that game, found a way to score some points, right. They had the lead in that game, and the offense went to sleep. Derek Carr leads the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks over the last 5 years. And part of that is because he's played for some awful teams and some bad defenses, and he's had to do that. So he's had more opportunities. This is not to say Derek Carr is the best quarterback in the NFL, but he certainly has the ability to do that if you're in that situation. And so that right there is right away. And if you count the other half of the stat Luke had, the last 2 minutes, if you count the first half, they scored 6 times over the last 2 years. Actually, I think it was 7 times in the last 2 minutes of the first half. So a total of 8 times they scored either touchdowns or field goals in the last 2 minutes of a half over the last 2 years. They also turned it over 7 times. So 8 scores and 7 turnovers in that 2-minute situation. I mean, look, if you can't improve that, you're not going to win close games. You're not going anywhere.
I will eat my words on this show if I have to, but I'm telling you that by the end of the season, there won't be anybody. The only people bitching about Derek Carr at the end of the season will be the Squirrels. I mean, that's the only people that will be out there saying bad things about Derek Carr. And maybe Dennis Allen, hopefully, because I don't know. It's going to be tough to take another year like we had last year. Derek's got a good question here. That's not Derek. Ruben says he was there. Derek asked the question, ever since the signing of Jalen Smith yesterday, there's been a debate that he has been better than Anthony Barr. The stats say they are even. Who fits the Saints system more? Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. And I think they're both at the point where you're looking for depth. They're both pretty well-rounded linebackers. One thing I like about Jalen Smith is that even with the injury history, he's a little bit younger than Anthony Barr.
Yeah.
I think he's 28 and Anthony Barr's 31. And so, if he does bounce back from the injuries and has a good season, and again, if you're the Saints, they needed a linebacker. Demario Davis is banged up, but by all accounts, he's going to be fine. But if he's out for an extended period, you're probably in trouble regardless. You just are counting on this guy to be that third or fourth linebacker and come in maybe in certain situations where you need an extra guy or there's somebody banged up. And if he can prove that, he's still only 28 years old. Maybe you have yourself a little bit of a diamond here. You found still with a couple good years left, you can sign him to a 2-year deal and you have some real depth going forward.
It's a great segue. And before we move on, because this just goes to show the thought process of the average fan. They always want to compare what you have to like the best. I mean, what do you think of Carr compared to Mahomes? I mean, really? I mean, what do I think of? I don't know. What do I think of Jimmy Garoppolo compared to Tom Brady? I mean,
Denny's I don't want to insult Derek Carr because I think he is a good quarterback, but you're comparing someone to the very best there is.
Exactly. You don't compare those things. That's an absurd question to ask. But go ahead. We take any questions on the show.
No, it's like okay, if you have an old beater as a car, exactly. And it's not running right and the engine's sputtering and the air conditioner doesn't work quite right and all that, and you go out and you're like, well, here is a fully loaded Honda Civic and here's a Lamborghini. You'll take the Civic.
Compare your 79 Plymouth to your 2022 Porsche.
Right, right. Like Derek Carr's probably not the Porsche, the $500,000 car, but he is a okay, he's not a new car, but he's a perfectly. It's funny that I chose car.
I know. I
did not mean to do that, but
automobile.
He's the fully loaded Honda Civic who has all the bells and whistles you need and can certainly get you from point A to point B in comfort. Like it's a huge upgrade over what you had. It's just not Pat Mahomes.
I appreciate the lawn guy coming right while we do the show. So if you hear that in the background, hey, I mean, got to cut the grass sometime.
It's summertime.
It is summertime. All right, we got to get to the not so good portion of this, and I know you're going to have an answer for me. Okay, this has been bugging me since Bayou Bets a week ago Monday. So I've been talking. So 4 shows on Bayou Bets and Dattitude last week. I've talked about this. No one has an answer for me, but I know you're going to have an answer for me. You're going to tell me it's not nearly as bad as I think it is. No one is talking about Andrus Peat and the injury. And the reason why this is so important to me is because, James Hurst might win the job anyway. By all accounts, he's going to win the job. If that happens, great. Okay, James Hurst is the left guard. But now you're super thin at left tackle because if Trevor Penning doesn't work out, okay, all this. The point is, Andrus Peat has this quadriceps injury, and the Saints just saying, oh, he'll be fine. Why are we taking them on their word for this? They have an awful track record for this kind of thing. Why are we just taking them that there's not something more wrong with Andrus Peat than we think?
I mean, okay, first of all, it's a fair point. Given the Saints' track record, could there be something seriously wrong with him? Yes. But in the preseason, do they have to tell us that? Absolutely not. They don't. So it's not that, Dennis Allen gives an injury update at the beginning of his press conference after practice every day during training camp. In fact, he's probably going to give another one here in a half hour. They're practicing at the Superdome this morning. And if there's anything new to note, he will note it. And the reporters see practice. And so they'll see, is Andres Pete off to the side working? Is he there at all? And so, look, I think it's a concern. I mean, they've gone as far. And here's the other part of the Andres Pete thing, Jim, is like, he's not playing that well when he was out there. And they listed, now it's an unofficial depth chart. It's the preseason game one. Take it for what you will. But I thought it was pretty eye-opening to see James Hurst listed as a co-starter with Andres Pete on their first depth chart. Andres Pete has started 90 of 95 games in his career.
But do you wonder at all? And no one's asked. Again, these are things that should be asked. I know they don't want to answer it, and they might dance around it, and they might not answer it anyway. But the fact that he's being listed as a co-starter almost suggests to me, with the contract that Pete has, that he's injured. And this is how we're going to cover this up. We're going to list James Hurst as the co-starter because he's probably going to start there anyway, because Andres Pete can't play because he's hurt.
Yeah, and Andres Pete's only played 30 games in the last 3 years anyway. So he's had this issue. I think this is a serious issue? Do I think the Saints think it's a serious issue? No, I don't think they do. Because if they did, I think you'd see that they've brought in running backs and linebackers over the last couple, let's say this week, to try to sign some depth, and they got Jalen Smith. They have not brought in offensive linemen since they lost Trey Turner. And so to me, that is the sign that the Saints are not overly concerned about it right now, because if they were, you'd hear all this stuff about them bringing guys in to try to shore up that position.
The fan part of me, and I'm human, so there is a fan part of me. I'm not going to disguise that in any form or fashion. I'm a lifelong New Orleanian, and I'm going to be 55 in a couple of weeks. So, I mean, I'm not going to hide the fact that, of course, I want the Saints to win. But the fan part of me is wondering why, okay, they bring in Kareem Hunt, which is great. You need depth at running back, and that's great. I think he's a very good player. He's going to help this team. Kamara's going to be gone for 3 games. You'll need him beyond that. If someone gets hurt, he steps in and can actually be a starter if you need him to. You bring in Jalen Smith. You need help at that position. There's no question. That's great. But to me, the number one spot on this team from 2 weeks ago, even really before Trey Turner got hurt, you bring in Trey Turner for depth, but after he gets hurt, and now we don't know what's going on with Pete, to me, this offensive line is one major injury away from being in complete and utter shambles. I don't think that's an exaggeration at all. They were already ranked somewhere around 26th to 28th, depending on where you look. I think PFF has them as 28th. So they're already towards the bottom. They're one Ryan Ramczyk injury away from being a complete and utter disaster.
Oh, I mean, I think their starting unit is okay. Kind of what you said. But this is something else we were talking about on Saints Insider is, look, Jameis Winston has struggled in camp. There's no getting around that. He's turned the ball over. He's looked indecisive. I mean, all these things. But part of that is, and I think it might have been Rod Walker brought this up, part of that is the second string offensive line just that bad that he's not, like he's working, it's against the second string defense, but the second string defensive line is way better than the second string offensive line. And they're showing it every day in practice. And so I do think that's an issue. I think it's something to watch out for against the Chiefs on Sunday, because you're going to see the twos get a lot of time.
For sure.
How do they hold up? And the Chiefs aren't going to be playing their starters, or at least not for very long. So how do they hold up against another team's backups? Are they getting roasted? Because then you're right. If that's the situation and Andres Pete, never gets to be 100%, and Trevor Penning continues to struggle in pass pro, and Ryan Ramczyk, look, he's not getting younger. He's still a solid piece, but he could get hurt. All of a sudden, that's going to look like Swiss cheese in front of Derek Carr. And that's not what you want, because one thing about Derek Carr is his stats are a lot better when he's protected properly. He's an elite quarterback when he's not under pressure. He is not anywhere near that when that's not his strength, is performing under that pass rush.
He's had some really bad offensive lines in Oakland and Las Vegas. And that's part of the reason why I think, it ended up being a good thing that he left there. He wanted to go somewhere with a good O-line. And when he came here, it looked like the O-line was going to be a big improvement over last year. And now you have to wonder. All right, by the way, Baker says a man should cut his own grass. Well, when you're 55 fat, out of shape, and it's 99 degrees outside, I don't give a damn. It's worth every cent to have someone cut my grass. I mean, look, I don't make a whole lot of money, and there are things that we do spend. We didn't go on vacation this year. I'd rather not go on vacation and have someone cut my grass. That's where I am right now. Derek asked, speaking of the Pete situation, does that force us to keep Storm Norton? Because Hurst will be replacing Pete. Storm's the only right tackle backup. I mean, really, you look at some of the backups. I mean, some of these, we talked about on Bayou Bets last week. Some of these names that I've never heard of are backups at center and backup at left tackle. I mean, good Lord.
Nick Saldivari is listed as a backup at guard. Yeah. I don't know if it's Storm Norton, but you got to keep somebody. You either have to keep him or go out and get somebody. I don't think Storm Norton, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've watched a bunch of his practice reps, but I think as a backup, the guy, he played quite a bit for a pretty good offensive line with the Chargers. He started 15 games 2 years ago. You could do worse as a backup right there. I mean, I don't think you want him playing week in and week out, but I don't know that that's my number one spot of concern.
Well, I'm with you that I think that if there's something that I'm going to be watching on Sunday more than anything, it's going to be how that number 2 offensive line holds up or plays, because they're probably going to play 2 quarters, and you're going to see a whole lot of them throughout this preseason, and you're going to learn a lot because there's a good chance that these number 2 guys are going to get plenty of playing time. It's not something you want, but it's probably something that's going to happen. So going forward, that's what we'll see. All right, before we go, and we want to end the show with I had my last week, Larry Holder helped me talk about my predictions of the NFC West. This week we were doing the AFC West, and I'm going to get your opinion on that in just a minute. Before we get to that part and close it out for the day, I do want to talk about Jeff Duncan had column/story this week about training camp potentially moving. And again, I know we're sitting here complaining about this heat, but the fact is that they're playing inside. I mean, they're practicing inside for the most part. My thing is this, and here's what: if it's just 1 year, fine, got to do whatever you got to do. But there are a couple reasons why I think training camp is better served here in the New Orleans area. At least it doesn't necessarily have to be at Saints camp, but I think where it's better served to be somewhere in Southeast Louisiana. If you look at their record, which is the most important thing, and I talked about this on Bayou Bets yesterday, their winning percentage since the Sean Payton era started in 2006 is somewhere along the lines of 53, 54% during the regular season. They do have the one Super Bowl that kind of skews that. It's really somewhere around 500 if you take that season out. But they did win the Super Bowl. The year they won the Super Bowl, they trained in Oxnard, California. However, if you look at their winning percentage for years that they've trained in Southeast Louisiana, it is, I think it's 63, 64%, including 2 NFC championship games and 7 playoff appearances. So, yeah, it sucks to be in this heat. It sucks for everybody. I mean, I'm talking about not cutting my own grass. But if you're an athlete, I think you're better served in the long run to be practicing here. I know that's not the thought process by some people.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an element too of team bonding when you go out and you travel and you stay in the same spot for 3 weeks. And the guys from the 2021 team after Hurricane Ida kind of named that as a reason why, they thought that going to Dallas to evacuate kind of led to some team bonding. Of course, that team ended up not being all that good. I don't know if there's a huge competitive advantage either way. It's hard to say. I mean, you could come up with some reasons why it's better to be in the heat. You could come up with some reasons why it's better to kind of be bonding. I do think guys prefer to be in their own beds with their families.
Yeah.
They didn't even stay, like sometimes they'll stay at a hotel, even in the New Orleans area for the first week or 2 of camp. They did not do that this year. And I have to imagine, I mean, if it was me, I would like to stay with my family and be at my own home every night. So I think there's advantages and disadvantages to both. The bottom line is, first of all, they're going to have to go somewhere else next year because they're renovating the cafeteria, which is next to the indoor practice facility. So we know they'll go somewhere next year. And then it may just depend on how next year goes, quite honestly. Like now we're looking at 2025. Okay, is Dennis Allen still the coach? Where did they go in 2024? How did it go? Did they appreciate the lodging where they were, the weather where they were, the accommodations? I mean, did all of that stuff work out well? Is it something they'd want to go back to again? So it's an interesting situation where they're going to do a trial run for it next year somewhere, and we'll see how it goes. I did think it was funny. Dennis Allen, who doesn't like to reveal anything in a press conference setting, he and he didn't really want to talk on this either, but he did say one thing that he knows is they're not going to Millsaps College in Jackson. That was the one place he eliminated off the bat. Like, I can tell you where it's not going to be, is it's going to be Millsaps College, which makes sense, because then you're going 2 hours up the road or 3 hours up the road to be in more heat and worse conditions. Like, I don't know why you do something like that.
It's still pretty hot in Jackson. I mean,
Yeah,
if you're going to avoid
somewhere,
go to Greenbrier or whatever.
Go to Greenbrier, go to Oxnard, go somewhere. And Jeff Duncan mentioned, go somewhere where, maybe you can put your own stamp on it. Maybe you don't want to go where,
I
the
think
Saints
Jeff Duncan is old like me and just doesn't. He wants to go off somewhere where it's cool in August as well. I mean, that to me, and I'm halfway kidding, but I think our writers probably wouldn't mind if they were somewhere where it got down in the 60s at night, and
our budget would, but our writers would.
Yeah, our budget would definitely not be happy about that. I just, I think it's overblown. And, another reason, you talk about team bonding, you can find other ways to bond with your team. But to me, I mean, what about the fans? The fans, look, whenever they do get a chance to practice outside, and look, this summer is just weird, okay? This is not a normal, typical New Orleans summer. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's hot every summer, and I hate summer. I've hated summer since I was a kid. I hate it when it's hot. But this summer is so unusual. It's becoming probably the worst summer of any of our lifetimes as far as heat goes. So it's not something that you're going to see every year. So you can't use this summer as an example. And they got hurricanes. You got all kinds of stuff everywhere. So, I mean, to me, but the fans deserve a chance to see their team. If you go practice somewhere else, they're not going to get that chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the answer to that is something of a hybrid model. Like we saw the Cleveland Browns do it this year. The Browns went to Greenbrier for, I think it was 9 days, and then they came back home and had some practices for the fans. I think if you do that, you go to camp for the first 2 weeks, which are, kind of those long, grueling practices when guys are just getting into shape. And then you come home around the week of the first preseason game, like this time, and then you have those
you do a hybrid
open practices,
and
that way you're not in the heat for as long, but you do get acclimated to the heat. You are using this facility you've got that taxpayers paid for, and you've got some opportunities for the fans to see the team too.
I mean, Jerry says he loves summer. We'll take fall, winter. I'll take winter. Winter in New Orleans. I'll take winter in New Orleans 12 months out of the year. That's where I'm at. And I live on the North Shore where it's colder. I mean, fall's okay, but fall's like, it's still humid. I mean, I remember this. I mean, Halloween's a crapshoot. It could still be 87 and mosquitoes and nasty. And I'll take winter.
October, November, not early fall, but like October, November into December. That's the best conditions right there.
I don't want Chicago winter. I want New Orleans winter 12 months out of the year. Not going to happen, but hey, a guy can dream. All right, let's move on. Before we finish the show, I want to get your thoughts on my predictions on the AFC West. I think we do have one more comment before. Oh, Ruben says it's better than a hurricane. I don't know, man. They're talking about 101, and I live on the north.
No, Ruben's right. I'm with Ruben on that.
I don't know, maybe like a little weak hurricane?
Little weak hurricane. Okay, that's all right. But I just last year was glorious because we didn't even have to worry about it once. I'll take that every year.
I don't. Give me some rain, and I don't like rain either. See, just complaining about everything.
Just like to complain.
You're right. I don't know what's going on with me. Maybe it's just it's August. It's the dog days of summer. Let's get to September. And let's get to real football on our real schedule. It's coming up. A month from yesterday. Tennessee Titans in town. All right. AFC West. We are going through our NFL team by team previews today. The Chargers ran this morning. Moving on to the NFC East next week. I'm sure everybody wants to hear about the Cowboys and the Eagles and what I think about them. But this is week number 3. In my previews this week, I have a tempered thought of Kansas City, and I still have them number 1 because I think the Chargers are going to do what the Chargers have been doing. I think the Broncos are a year away from Sean Payton taking full effect. I'm not sure what Russell Wilson's going to do, and I think the Raiders are just going to be awful. So Get your take on the AFC West and what you see there. And again, the defending champion Chiefs coming in town, but I think they're gonna, more than they missed Tyreek Hill last year, I think they're gonna miss the fact that they don't have Juju and that they don't have McCole Hardman. I think losing both of those guys and the fact that Kelsey is now going to be 34 years old, I think that might end up being a little problem for them.
Yeah, well, and with the Chiefs, the other part of this is, it's week 7 and they're playing in Denver. And I haven't looked at the schedule. I'm just, and the Broncos are super pumped up for this game. And KC goes in at 4-2. And they're like, well, we could lose this game and we'll just go on a run later like we always do. I mean, not saying that that's exactly what they'll consciously think, but is the motivation going to be there on the same level as it is for these other teams? And so I do think I kind of like what you have here. I mean, I love to disagree with you, that, but
there's you wanted to see the Chiefs schedule. There it is.
Yeah. Okay. So that was pretty close actually. That's week 8 at Denver.
Week 6 home against Denver. You said week 6. They're home on a Thursday night against Denver.
So I could see Kansas City losing a couple more games than they did last year. Having said that, look, the quarterback is the difference maker. I think Justin Herbert, I still think he's going to take a star turn. I think he was playing hurt most of last year.
Could be.
And so I do think that if another team wins this division, it's the Chargers. I think
just love Brandon Staley.
Look, I think you could bump each of the top 3 teams here up by a game and knock the Raiders down 3 games. I think the Raiders might be really bad.
The Raiders are going to be really bad.
Look,
they have a brutal schedule, by the way.
It's not what and look, they lost Derek Carr and they brought in Jimmy Garoppolo. Kind of, it was a weird thing. Like they brought him in, and then remember that he kind of there was questions whether he failed his physical.
Yes,
and they delayed the press conference like a week. And then he comes out and then, oh, no, everything's fine. Nothing to see here. And you're like, well, there was something to see there. Something's going on. So is Jimmy Garoppolo even going to be healthy? Part of the reason I think they got rid of Carr is because Josh McDaniel really liked, I'm blanking on his name, the kid from Auburn who played the last 2 games after Carr left.
Stidham.
Jarrett Stidham. Yeah. And then Stidham left. Stidham up and left. So they don't even there was these rumors that McDaniels wanted, Jarrett Stidham was his hand-picked guy, and he was going to be the successor to Derek Carr, and then he left, and then they had to go and sign Jimmy Garoppolo, the weird physical thing.
And then they didn't just sign him; they signed him to a 4-year, $74.5 million contract.
Devontae Adams, who's clearly their best player, is like these cryptic quotes about how he doesn't agree with the direction of the franchise and how he would do things differently. And that's not what you want, man.
Aiden O'Connell's going to be the quarterback of this team in 2 years, by the way.
There is a decent chance, better than 1/3 chance that the bottom completely falls out of Vegas.
Look, and before we go, I know we're getting close to the time where we need to sign off here, but look at this schedule. They are set up to where they could easily, I could see them starting 0-6 easily, or 1-5 for sure. At Denver, at Buffalo. To me, those are 2 losses.
What's the easiest game on that schedule? At Indy?
At Chicago? Indy.
Yeah, at Chicago. Giants Indy. At home, maybe. But
this is like a potentially a 3, 4, 5 win kind of schedule.
Yeah, we don't know how good Green Bay is going to be. Maybe Green Bay at home is. But to your point, the schedule's tough.
Brutal.
And there's a chance that this team, especially if they do,
and they know their bye week till December.
Yeah, I think there's a chance where. I don't want to say we're on 0-17 watch or anything, but I think this is absolutely a team that could have the number 1 pick next year.
Maybe I'll put 5.
So that's my strong take is the Raiders are going to be awful, and I think you could see the Raiders go 3-14 and then bump a couple of these other teams up a game, and the Chiefs go 12-5 and the Chargers go 11-6 or something. I could see that.
I never looked, but I need to go to Sport Track and look because I wonder how much money of that for Jimmy G is guaranteed. They easily could be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes.
Yeah, if I had to pick 3 teams for the Caleb Williams sweepstakes right now, it'd be Vegas, Arizona, and Tampa Bay.
Can you explain to me though why they have 6 primetime games? That makes no sense whatsoever.
How many of those are Thursdays? Just one?
Just one is a Thursday. They have 2 Monday night games, 2 Sunday night games, and neither one of the Sunday night games are flex potential. You can't flex the Kansas City game either because it's a Christmas. So they're not going to flex that either.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't make any sense. Jerry says he's looking at the Raiders schedule. They'll be eliminated in December. I think they're going to be eliminated before then. I mean, probably you can't probably officially be eliminated until December, but man,
I think they're a franchise that they have sort of kind of like the Cowboys or the Giants, or like people will watch them no matter what because they just have that fan base. But yeah, I just don't see this team being good.
Well, and I know part of it too is that media loves to go to Vegas, kind of like they go to New Orleans. But I mean, look at the Saints schedule. Saints only have 3 primetime games, and 2 of them are on a Thursday.
You know what the best thing about that schedule is, Jim? As the Saints editor, there are no 325 games. 325.
I know. I agree.
They're the worst for newspaper deadlines and everything because it's a lot later than you think when those games are over.
You'll love this as we're about to sign off here. Ruben says football is a lot harder compared to soccer because the ball is not round.
That doesn't make any sense, man. I was sweating out my Spain Women's World Cup bet last night. The Spaniards survived. You watching Burnley and Man City Premier League opener this afternoon?
Oh well, I might. Maybe I'll put it on. I'm probably going to be watching golf though. But I will say this: I have just not been able to watch any, and I mean any, Women's World Cup.
The games are on at ridiculous times. I mean, I watched the game last night because it was the last game that would be on. I'm not sleeping. So I was like, I'm going to watch this one. And it was a good game because it was on at 8 p.m. And like every other game is either, I think, 2:30 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. It's like maybe in the 5:30 a.m. game, and when I get up, I can watch if it goes to PKs or something. I'll catch the end of it. But
before what Jerry says, weeks 5 to 18, they flex. I don't think 5 is when the flex.
They did expand the flex.
I don't think it's 5. I don't think it's that early.
Yeah.
But either way, they're not gonna change a Christmas game. I can tell you that right now. You can flex all you want. You're not flexing Christmas. You're not going to take somebody off of a Christmas game when they've already prepared for it and put somebody else on it that doesn't want to do that.
No, I agree with that. They did change this though. Sunday Night Football can be used up to twice between weeks 5 and 10 and any week between weeks 11 and 17. Monday Night Football, it can be used any weeks between 12 and 17. Okay. Thursday Night Football, it can be used up to twice between 13 and 17, which includes
so most
Saints
of the flex is not until the end.
Yes, Saints and Rams is a Thursday night game in that window, though, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that one moved.
Let's say then you'd have your 325 game.
And that's a Thursday night game. It's like December 21st, and so you wait, you flex that thing, and now you're playing on Christmas Eve again.
Art said 3 o'clock games are fun because
he's right. I'm sure they're fun for the fans. I actually like the 3 o'clock window as a fan better too, but when you're covering the game, they're a pain.
I don't even remember the last time I went to a game as a fan. It's been a while. But anyway, all right, Zach. Well, how you enjoying the new gig? You miss us, don't you? I mean, we didn't even talk about the -3 and the over under 37.5. Not that we should be betting preseason or anything.
I'm still a degenerate at heart. I'm just not going to bet Saints anything because I'm covering the team. That wouldn't be really objective if I'm betting on the Saints. Yeah, so I'm not betting any Saints games. I'm still a degen at heart, and I'll still keep my eye on what y'all are doing on Bayou Bets.
Yeah, well, I don't have any problem betting on or against the Saints. Saints preview is not till September the 8th. I got a little while to figure out what's going on there, and I got to be honest, I have no idea what I'm picking for Saints. If you sat me down and forced me to pick right now, I really don't know what I would pick. I might just pick out of a hat at the moment. I have no idea.
Talking about for the opener or for their win?
No, just over under for their win total.
Oh, I'm going under.
You are okay,
but I think 9 and 8. I think 9.5 is about right.
They're pretty much 9 almost everywhere except for Caesars.
Yeah, I think 9 and 8, and I think 9 and 8 wins the division. But
I don't. I think the Carolinas will surprise people. I think that's the value. I'm not saying Carolina is going to win the division, but I think there's major value on Carolina. And I'm giving spoiler alerts. That is one team that I do like right now. I think Carolina's going to be a lot better. I know
Atlanta is my pick if the Saints don't win.
Well, no one's picking Tampa Bay, so that's probably who it'll be. But no. I ain't betting on Baker Mayfield. Sorry. I mean, just can't do it. All right, Zach. Well, try to stay out of the heat. We love what you're doing. You got the new podcast, Inside Saints. It can be found wherever podcasts are, just like Dattitude. You can pretty much go wherever you find your podcast. Apple, Google, Spotify. It's all over, right?
Yep, it's everywhere, and We've done about 3 episodes. Only one of them is actually up on podcast. We had some audio problems the first 2, and so we didn't put them up. But Monday will be the next episode, Monday afternoon, and we'll roll from there.
Okay, and also with the Saints, Luke is posting like a little 2-3 minute update every day. That's pretty cool as well. And you can find that NOLA.com/Saints. That's where he posts that, or on the Saints YouTube page, or maybe wherever you find these podcasts as well.
Yeah, the Saints on NOLA.com YouTube page is the easiest place, and then we're posting them on NOLA.com/sports/Saints, like you said. So the little 2-minute drill, really good stuff from Luke. I mean, it's just the one thing you need to know. Like, because camp can be overwhelming. Even if you're out there watching and you know what you're watching for, it can be kind of overwhelming because so many things are happening. And then, oh, the 1s are out there. Now the 2s are out there. Now the 3s are out there. What just happened? What are they doing now? You know, and Luke is a veteran at this now. He's able to look at it and say, okay, here's what stuck out to me today. If you want to know one thing, here's what it is. So those are really cool. Okay.
I can't cover the game Sunday because I have some other obligations here. It's some little girl's 12th birthday weekend.
That's important.
But can you, as the boss, can you get someone to ask between now and Sunday night? Can someone ask any kind of question any way they want about Andrus Peat?
If no one else does it, Jim, I'll do it for you.
I know you will. See, I knew you would do that for me. It's just bugging. It's really bugging me. I don't care how you word it, whatever. It can be, a softball. It can be a question that we know they're not going to give you an answer to.
They're probably not going to give an answer, but that is no excuse not to ask it. You're 100% right about that.
There you go. Thank you, Zach Ewing. And we miss you. So we'll have you on Bayou Bets at some point in the near future.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll talk to you later. Zach Ewing here on Dattitude. We thank everyone for being a part of it. We had some nice comments there at the end. Every Friday, the rest of the season at 10 a.m., the rest of the calendar year, we're going to be here on Dattitude unless something weird's going on. I don't know who my guest is next Friday, but we'll be here, and we'll be talking. Who do the Saints play next week?
The Saints are in LA to play the Chargers next week.
There you go. That's right, because they have the joint practices. I forgot about that. Chargers are playing the Rams this weekend. By that, I know everybody's excited about that. All right, so that's where we'll be next Friday, and we got Bayou Bets on Monday and Bayou Bets on Thursday. Everybody have a great weekend. Try to stay cool. 101 degrees, no problem. Go call the heat miser. He'll figure it out for you. Talk to you next week. Peace and love, my friends.